The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Here we go. We're off and running, and we got a ton of news to talk about. And I think Caleb Calhoun is somewhere in the Arctic. Maybe we'll explain that. Maybe we won't, but we've got a lot to get to, including one of, in my opinion, Tennessee's two most talented Vols was caught in a little bit of trouble by the police. So we'll discuss that. And he may be number one on my list. We'll kick that around as well. Listen to the cops, kids. Just do what they say, and it's going to work out more oftentimes than not if you don't. 3 Vols make the All-SEC team. One's a little bit surprising, but we'll discuss that. Also, Tennessee's offensive line, Addison Nichols in the transfer portal. John Campbell coming back. That's big for Tennessee. So I'm going to give you a look at Tennessee's offensive line as it looks right now. And it looks like it could be pretty good, but it looks like it needs to get deeper. So Tennessee, I'm sure, will try to address that in the transfer portal. Lady Vols go 1-3 against top 25 teams. Heisman finalist revealed. I'll try to give you a hint as to who I voted for. They tell me not to tell anybody, but what are they going to take my vote away? And a little bit later, what would a 12-team playoff look like? Is it better or just stupid? I can go ahead and tell you that Caleb and I are going to disagree on that one, but we'll get your thoughts as well. And our 5 favorite minutes, that's where you get to take over the program at the very end, and we'll answer your questions. We had a lot of fun with that on the first day yesterday, so we've got a lot going on. Our 5 favorite minutes will be at the end of the program, and we'll answer absolutely anything you want. We try to do that during the show, but sometimes Caleb and I just frankly talk too much. Caleb, how are you today, sir?
I am good. I am sitting outside and dealing with a height issue. I'm actually on a balcony on the 16th floor, and I actually have a phobia of heights. So I'm powering through today.
This should go well. So I'm comfortable with my coffee, while Caleb Calhoun may have already peed himself. I don't know, but that's what could be the case.
You know what you shouldn't do when you have a phobia of something? Drink coffee, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you love the could word? Josh Heupel could go to Oklahoma. Josh Heupel could go to Texas A&M. The sun could implode tomorrow. Could is a fun word, especially in talk radio. But we think Caleb's fine, and we've got a lot to get to, and it doesn't start with great news. It's today's tough question. It's brought to you by Andy Mason of AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side.
Take a stand.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, so it's on the website now, offthehooksports.com, and look at what we got. We got Tennessee's, I believe, most talented player. I would have said Brew McCoy before the beginning of last season, and it's not because of McCoy's injury that he suffered. It's just because of what I saw out of James Pearce and talking to some people who know football better than I. I think he's Tennessee's best athlete just in terms of size-speed ratio, has the highest upside. I think he's that good. Fred White has described him as Leonard Little, and Fred doesn't throw those things out, the VFL safety who joins us from time to time. So what did James Pearce do, Caleb Calhoun? Wasn't huge, wasn't monstrous. It was just kind of dumb. Can you get everybody caught up to date? And then I'm going to ask today's tough question, brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Over 40 years of experience in his office. Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best service, best prices in the biz. Real estate in East Tennessee, Knoxville, Andy Mason, realestate.com. So get us caught up to date. Caleb, what did our guy James Pearce do?
Our guy James Pearce was arrested after a traffic stop. Now, turned out he was driving on a suspended license, a license that was suspended from his time from North Carolina. And, okay, don't drive on a suspended license. That's stupid. The arrest came after he was asked to, I believe, step away from the vehicle, and then he walked towards the vehicle. Now, Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. The description of this is a little shady. I'm not trying to be some James Pearce homer. I'm not a Tennessee homer. I'm the one who said they have a discipline problem a month ago, right? With the traffic incidents that they've had.
Yes.
So this is not me being a James Pearce homer. What does that mean? He walked towards the vehicle when I told him not to. Therefore, I'm going to arrest him. I mean, like, that's very subjective, isn't it? I'm not saying that there's any lie on that, but it's like, did he blatantly say, F you, I'm going back to my vehicle? Or was it like he took a step towards the vehicle and got arrested? We don't know.
I don't know. Here's I want to do two things. Like at Thanksgiving dinner, I hate pistachio pudding, so I just sit it to the side and I'm not touching it. Okay, so I'm a white guy, all right, and I've been treated like a white guy by police, so I don't want to get into the whole could he have been treated differently, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know the insides of that. And the other thing that I'm going to set aside is exactly what was said, what happened, because that will become public, and you could be right. It could be a bleep you, that's my car. Be sure and hit the like and subscribe button. But my question is, today's tough question, to kind of break this down a little bit, how concerned are you about the James Pearce incident? So right now, and I just put the poll up, you've got very concerned, somewhat concerned, all good, just being a kid. So we don't know if James Pearce walked back to his car and said that you police are a bunch of pigs. I can't stand you guys. I don't like you guys. You're terrible people. You know, there's probably some bleeps in there as well. Or if he was compliant and they didn't like him. I don't know. But based off what we know, how do you feel about the James Pearce incident? Very concerned, somewhat concerned, all good, just being a kid. And I will tell you one of my most embarrassing moments in Tennessee when I was pulled over for an expired license. And it was like at 9:40 in the morning when everybody's going to class. I think the classes started at 10:15, Caleb. So everybody's walking past me, and I drove a junker back then, and I was embarrassed to death. So it happens. Kids do stupid stuff like that. You also have different addresses. Now, he also had a suspended license in another state, so that's a little weird. But I can see how they couldn't get in touch with him, and something small like this could pile up. Here's why I'm on very concerned before I ask you. Did you notice the year, the make, and the model of the car that Pearce was driving?
I actually didn't look at the details. What was it?
2021, I believe it was a Grand Cherokee. So I like fast cars, Caleb. You saw my car in Nashville at the SEC Media Days. I do like fast cars. That is my vice.
I like the Tracy Chapman song, Fast Car, but different story.
I like that song as well, which got remade recently by a country singer, and that should not happen. That's one of those songs that shouldn't be remade. But go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I like fast cars. I couldn't afford a fast car when I was 20, 21 years old. Not the kind that I like. These guys can afford it with NIL. So the answer is undoubtedly, for me, very, very concerned. We've seen what happens at Georgia. Now you've got an issue at Tennessee, and this is the third traffic incident that has received news that has to do with a Vol. And I just think the ability, having NIL money, to get now this is not a sports car by any stretch of the imagination, but I still remember traveling to Gainesville to cover a Florida game. And I've only got 2 or 3 speeding tickets in my life. And I got one because I was driving a rental car, a Ford Edge, and it was really smooth. And it felt like you were going 40 miles an hour at 60 miles an hour. So point being, it's easier and more comfortable to go faster in cars that are nice that you can afford. So that to me is the issue. And it's not just at Tennessee, Caleb, it's across the board. These guys have money that they can spend on nicer cars. And I guarantee you that 2021 Grand Cherokee is more comfortable at 100 miles an hour than the Volkswagen Golf I had when I was in college. So I think it's a big concern everywhere. I'm not going to throw it as an indictment on James Pearce's character, but yeah, this is an issue. It's already been an issue at Georgia, and God forbid you have a staff member or a player die because somebody's driving too fast. So in and of itself, not an issue. In this NIL world, yeah, I'm concerned. If I'm Josh Heupel, this and gambling, honestly, in the NIL world are my two biggest concerns.
Well, and as you talk about, there's levels to this. By the way, when we talk about how did he behave, basically the standard, the 10 of concern is the Jeremy Banks behavior. We all saw the footage of that. Remember that, Dave? When Jeremy Banks was like, "Where I'm from, we shoot cops." And
yes.
Like,
and there was, they asked him to get out of the car and he didn't want to at first. So it's funny you bring that up. I thought there was a strange correlation between the two. I'm not comparing the two, but it is funny you bring that one up.
Was James Pearce Jeremy Banks, or was this a misunderstanding? We still don't know. We got to wait for details to come out. I agree it's very concerning because it's the third. And Dave, you and I have talked about this. You said it 1,000 times over, and I agree with you. When you lose discipline, you can't get it back because you send out a signal to everybody else. I mean, Tennessee had severe traffic incidents under Philip Fulmer in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Even when some of those guys went to the NFL.
Yeah, and even when some of them went to the NFL. And I mean, we talked about it last week, but the program was already about to fall apart. But the last one, the most notable one, was Britton Colquitt's DUI, crashing into a tree and running from the scene of a crime. And Fulmer was suspended for 4 games or something like that.
Yes.
And it was easy to make a statement there. It was your punter. You can easily kick your punter off the team. But he didn't kick him off the team. And it had already gone so far down at that point. So what I'm getting at is this one's a test for Josh Heupel. See, Josh Heupel took a really big stance his first year as head coach. He kicked Kaidon Salter off the team for 2 possession arrests, possession of weed. By the way, I don't care what the law say. Being reckless driving is worse than being high every time. I'd rather someone get high 20 times than someone reckless drive 1 time. One puts someone's life in danger, one doesn't. So
I might debate you on that, but anyway, go ahead because I'll be honest with you. I like a sports car. I do some things that they would say might be reckless driving if I got the wrong cop. Now I would get it brought down because I know lawyers. By the way, the program, of course, is represented by Banks and Jones, and so certainly check them out. Tennessee's trial attorney. They won't settle. T. Scott Jones will take care of you, Banks and Jones. But go ahead. I mean, I could be charged with reckless.
No one has ever died from marijuana, though. Marijuana has a body count of 0 in world history.
True.
And
but we don't even know that he had weed, so I don't know why we're.
No. I was bringing up the Kaidon Salter thing. Heupel dismissed Kaidon Salter, who, by the way, just led Liberty to an undefeated season. Heupel dismissed him for 2 possession charges when he was a freshman. Now, I was suspicious at the time that I felt Heupel was doing that because he wanted an excuse to, 1, say he's a disciplinarian, but 2, it was easy because he wanted to clear the field for Joe Milton. We all know he wanted to clear the field for Joe Milton to start.
Yes.
It's a lot harder with James Pearce, isn't it? When you have a rare talent that you don't want off the team. You need him going forward. And this is a test for him. I think if he's going to be consistent with what he did with Kaidon Salter, you got to suspend him for a few games no matter what. And he's very consistent if he doesn't.
And I also don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but we had Fred White on, and I didn't follow up. Maybe I should have, but he essentially said, he just needs to get his stuff together and he'll be fine. I don't know if that meant on the field, if that meant how to handle pass blocking, if that meant, maybe he's not quite as mature off the field as he needs to be. But in and of itself, I got no problem with this. When you look, though, at the NIL and the potential to have sports cars, the potential to have cars that feel more comfortable at 100 miles an hour than not. I don't know about you, but I had a buddy who had a Bronco. And, man, you hit 100 miles on that, 100 miles an hour, and you felt like the whole thing was shaking apart. I guarantee you James Pearce's car at 100 miles an hour feels nice and comfy, like you're in a recliner in front of your television.
Dave was the OJ driver. We figured it out.
The OJ driver. Yes, I was. You know who I am, Dad. Blame it. What's his name? Help me on the message board. What is it? JT or something? What was his name that was driving the car for?
I
OJ?
don't even remember the name, but
randomly call 911. And who is this? You know who I am? Bleepity bleep.
Was that your friend though? Was that the Bronco driver that was your friend?
He was the driver, so I guess I was OJ, but we didn't kill anybody.
Okay.
I was just riding along.
So, in all seriousness, and I hate to get philosophical on this, but I have to bring it up. Okay, Dave, I'm not, but you are. You're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you, as your kid was growing up, for minor, not serious infractions, sometimes set a standard like this won't be tolerated because you knew if you let it get out of hand now that it would get worse later?
Oh yeah. I'm having to do that with a puppy as we speak.
Don't you have to do that with the program? Don't you have to say, if you let it get a little bit out of hand, you told me, I mean, to me, ground zero for Fulmer letting things get out of hand was James Binks at Tennessee, where he let him get away with all but murder because he was such a rare athlete. Everybody saw that. And Fulmer, and that's why you had all the arrests that happened in that 05 all season, right? Because everybody saw, well, if James Binks can get away with it, I can do it. And by the time you create that culture, there is no coming back from that. I mean, you got to nip it when you nip it. And that doesn't mean kick players off the team, but that does mean, you don't have to go the Spurrier route because Spurrier was pretty heavy of a disciplinarian. He didn't care. He wouldn't even get to the bottom of it. He said, if you were accused of hitting a woman, you're off the team, period, end of story. Like, wouldn't even try to figure it out. I'm not saying go that route, but I am saying go the route of you're suspended for a little while, even for the most minor infractions, to let people know this won't be allowed because Fulmer lost complete control of the program because of a few people he let slide.
So would you suspend James Pearce for this?
Yeah, just a suspended license alone, driving on a suspended license. That's something he did that was wrong that he shouldn't have done. He is at fault for that.
Okay, I probably wouldn't. But I get your point. I probably, unless he said bleepity bleep to the cops and all this stuff's recorded now, I probably wouldn't, but I certainly understand.
I don't believe in dismissing. I don't believe in dismissing players from a team unless they just show repetitive behavior. Unless you're Aaron Hernandez out here killing people in your Urban Meyer and you're like, I don't care. Kill whoever you want as long as you score me a touchdown. But, I don't believe in that.
Okay.
I don't believe
not shooting them, especially. You just don't know. Before we get to why Josh Heupel was underrated this past season, I'll remind you, Brainerd Golf Course and Brown Acres Golf Course. Tee times available. Golf Chattanooga's best public courses. That is right down below. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
What the H? Today brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, and Taylor and Hahn. I have no glasses or contacts. I'll tell you more. But first, at our 3:45 a.m. Meeting this morning, our production meeting, Caleb brought up this point. Josh Heupel, he was a better coach this season than we've given him credit for. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought we've given him a lot of credit. I thought we've backed him for injuries, and I thought that he's had his bad moments, but we never said he was a bad coach. Even John Adams, who usually joins us on Tuesdays, but he's traveling today. Even John Adams has said he's not worried about the state of the program, despite the fact that there were 2 games this season, Missouri and Florida, that were horribly coached. But 3 Vols make the AP All-SEC team, and that is James Pearce, that is Cooper Mays, who I think kind of he missed a lot of the season. I think this is kind of grandfathered in, but he plays at that level. There's no question. So when he was on the field, he was certainly all SEC. And then Jalen Wright, who I'm telling you is going to be one of those tailbacks who you want your team to have in the NFL, is power back. And I would be stunned if he came back based off what I'm hearing. I could be wrong. And then we'll see what Tennessee does if Jabari Small transfers or Jabari Small says, I want to stay. Anyway, Tennessee's running back group was a strength and could be in flux. So the Vols were 7th in representation despite finishing 5th in the league. And I thought Caleb came up with a great point. Is that a testament to Heupel's coaching? Caleb, and the reason I thought about your point throughout the morning is you have a football team here that is still just 3 seasons removed from a mass exodus and a complete roster turnover. I think 2022 makes us forget that a little bit. So have we, now that we have some time to sit back and think, have we undervalued the job that Josh Heupel did in 2023? Make that argument, because you made a good one at 3:45 a.m. this morning at our production meeting.
Yes, we've absolutely undervalued it. Tennessee, it's really difficult as it is, given what they're 3 years removed from. Dave, it's even more difficult when all of your key players left from the team of 2022. This is what it reminds me of. Here's actually a great analogy. Do you remember when Chris Lofton's senior year with Tyler Smith, when the Vols hit number 1 for the first time in Tennessee basketball? Remember that? When they beat Memphis, they were number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the next year, they were favored to win the SEC. And people kind of got a little upset at Bruce Pearl because they actually had probably their worst year in the 6 years under him. But nobody paid attention to the fact that they had lost Chris Lofton and Jawan Smith, which was their entire backcourt from the year before. And Ramar Smith had been dismissed from the team. So, yeah, they had recruited well, they had arrived as a program, but they lost so much talent, and we had forgotten where Tennessee basketball was and the state of the program overall before we got there and how thin the depth was, that a lot of people turned on Bruce Pearl unjustifiably. Nobody was going to fire him, don't get me wrong. And then the next year he took Tennessee to the Elite Eight, their only Elite Eight in history. I'm seeing kind of the same thing with Josh Heupel, where he took over a disaster of a program. He turns it around immediately. He turns it around with players who had a shelf life, who weren't going to be there that much longer. And they all left at the end of 2022. Jalen Hyatt, Hendon Hooker, Darnell Wright. These are transcendently talented players. So I got to be honest, I think that we're forgetting where Tennessee was, and we're forgetting the job Josh Heupel did. And by the way, they weren't just 7th. They were tied for 7th with 2 other teams, South Carolina and I believe Mississippi State, that also had 3 All-SEC players. So Heupel outcoached at least 4 teams in the SEC to finish number 5. We can't ignore that.
No, that's fair. And you didn't even mention the injuries, which would be Keenan Pili and Cooper Mays would be 2 of the primary ones. Brew McCoy. Since you brought it up, let's go ahead and throw it out there. What grade would you give? And I want to hear on the message board too, Josh Heupel's coaching, considering the injuries, considering the departures. It's tough for me not to make an argument of B+ or A. Now, I think there were some in-game coaching moments that he'd like to have over. I think Florida, he would like to have over. I think Alabama, he would like to have over in some of the 4th downs. And I think Missouri came out with a defense that was completely different than anything they have done. And Josh Heupel didn't adjust at halftime or whenever the case may be. So I think there's some moments he'd like to have back. So I'm not giving him an A+, but I wouldn't have any problem with a B+. Rob says B+. Derek says A all day. So I don't have a problem with a B+, A-, or you could probably even talk me into an A. So if that's the case, then Tennessee's in great shape moving forward. And we're going to talk about their offensive line as well, which might be better than you think. Right up on that on offthesports.com coming up later. But it sounds like 8-4 is a step back, and it is from 10-2. But did he do a better coaching job this year than last year? Oh, we lost your audio there, Caleb. We lost your audio. Let's bring you back there.
Rookie mistake.
That's all right.
I don't know if I could go better than last year, to be honest with you. I got to be honest. That's tough. Because I said in the middle of the season after the Texas A&M win that it was a better coaching job, but that Missouri loss I had to reset a little bit. Now, I will say, I actually will. This was a better coaching job than last year for Josh Heupel. Now, was it the best coaching job in the SEC? No. Dave, you hate it, but Eli Drinkwitz probably did a better coaching job this year than Josh Heupel.
I agree. No, I got no argument on that. I mean, I'll give kudos when they're due, even if I don't particularly like them.
And my hot take, and people are going to call me crazy on this. Y'all can call me crazy all day. I don't care. The coach of the year in the SEC was Nick Saban. Him taking over the offense in week 3 with Jalen Milroe, he should be this is the most impressive coaching job Nick Saban has ever done. He should be national coach of the year, Nick Saban, this year. And anybody that thought he was just a recruiter, look at what he did this year with Jalen Milroe and taking over the offense. He should. I don't know if you think I'm crazy, Dave. He should be coach of the year just for that.
If you don't go into a season knowing who your quarterback is, I can't go down that road with you. I just can't. I mean, you should have a feel through spring practice and preseason camp who your quarterback is, and that decision should be made. Now, I understand that those are not always settled in the preseason, but one of a couple of things happened. He allowed Jalen Milroe to go out there ill-prepared, or his offensive coordinator, who you pointed out yesterday, didn't have a good plan in place, and then he took over. My argument was you should have taken over before the Texas game. So I can't give him a stellar grade, but I'll give him a very good grade. I think this was one of his top 2 or 3 coaching jobs of his career. How about that? That's where I am.
That's fair. I think the mistake then would have been just the offensive coordinator hire. He just hired the wrong coordinator. But to his credit, he took over for that coordinator three weeks in, and he said, this is my offense. Nick Saban coached both sides of the ball all year. I don't think he's ever done that.
Yep. So let me ask you this. With Josh Heupel, do you feel like fans have been a little bit unfair to him because of the 8-4 record? The fact that he has been criticized frequently because of those in-game issues. Now, I don't think so. I think that, listen, you and I are going to differ on this. Going forward on 4th down and your own end of the field with a lead against Alabama was beyond dumb, in my opinion. I think that Tennessee not being able to adjust, and I was told that by somebody within the program that Missouri threw a totally different defense at them. Not being able to adjust at halftime and have some sense of offensive prowess is still bizarre to me. That is probably the most surprising. But What the H brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. ccteyes.com, ccteyes.com. So how many coaches in the SEC, Caleb, had a better coaching season than Josh Heupel? Obviously, you've got Nick Saban, who you believe, and I would make that argument as well. Just we're on the same page there. But who else had a better coaching season? Eli Drinkwitz? Is there anybody else? Did Josh Heupel have the 3rd best season in the SEC?
We probably have to say Lane Kiffin too. I mean, he had to take an array of transfers because that's all he could get, and he went 10-2 and beat LSU. I mean, can we really ignore what Lane Kiffin did at Ole Miss with that? And he beat Tulane, which is not a bad non-conference win, to be honest with you. So I think we'll go Lane Kiffin. Probably had a better season than Josh Heupel. We always forget he's in the SEC, don't we? And like he's the biggest loudmouth.
Well, I consider David Cutcliffe a friend, and there were times I forgot that he was at Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Mississippi State both just seem like these castaway programs, and I wonder where they're going to stand in the hierarchy of the SEC now that Texas and Oklahoma are in there as well. Let's give you a quick roster update if we can, and brought to you in part by our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. Go to cityheatandair.com. Let's talk some O-line. All right. I know you probably read what is on offthehooksports.com or will be pretty shortly, but how certain do you feel, or do you, that Tennessee will be considerably better on the offensive line in 2024 than it was in 2023?
So let's get some news out since we're talking the O-line. So yesterday, John Campbell Jr. announced he's returning, and I think that's crucial. Addison Nichols announced he's entering the transfer portal. I think that doesn't matter. And so I think there is a chance that the offensive line is better next year. We're not sure yet because we need to see what Cooper Mays is going to do, and we need to see what Javonte Spraggins is going to do, and we need to see what Gerald Mincey is going to do. But Dave, you talked about the concern of the offensive line in 2024. There's a chance all three of them come back, at which point 4 of the 5 starters from this year's offensive line would be back next year. And the one that wouldn't be back is their left guard spot, and that was the weakest spot of the line anyway. So I think that there's a very good chance the offensive line is significantly better. I think it comes down to Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins. I think those are the 2 most irreplaceable players on the line.
Yeah, and let's take a look at these guys specifically. And at left guard, you would think Andre Keurig with another year. I mean, physically, you think he's ready, right? I mean,
no,
I don't.
I think physically he's not ready. I saw him get wrecked way too many times. I don't think he can.
But
play.
that could be bad steps. I mean, that could be a lack of understanding of the offense. So I'm not willing to write him off the same way I wouldn't write, let's say, a freshman off. Who was the kid? Albert Toina. I didn't think he was very good his first year at left tackle at Tennessee. In fact, he never got great. But that would be the argument that I would make, that he has another year in the system to get better. But let's take a look at this offensive line for a second. Let's start with John Campbell Jr. Pro Football Focus gave him a 59.5 grade for the season. He was really good at pass blocking at left tackle. That's important. 72.8 grade from PFF. That's big. You got, I can't remember his name. What is his name that's supposed to start next year? Is it Nico? Yes. So you want to protect his blind side. And then Ollie Lane is out of eligibility, so he's gone. They'll need somebody to play at left guard. Right now, this could change in 2 hours. Andre Keurig is projected to be that guy, I would think, at left guard. I'm not as down on him as Caleb. He got a 59 grade from Pro Football Focus. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, so I guess Caleb and I are pretty close. Javonte Spraggins.
Pretty bad.
What's that? Yeah, 59 ain't great. Yeah. Javonte Spraggins suffered a season-ending injury last season, but indicated he would return for another season at Tennessee during a speaking engagement at the Knoxville Quarterback Club. He got a 67.9 grade. And then at right tackle, the Vols depended on Gerald Mincey to replace Darnell Wright. Mincey ended the 2022 season with a 60.6 grade. Let me tell you right now, Tennessee's offensive line will be great if 2 things. Cooper Mays comes back and they stay healthy. Because you can't go in the transfer portal and say, hey, come be a backup. You would love Tennessee. And right now, that's how it's looking, at least to a prospective athlete in the portal. They're going to look at Keurig, whether or not you and I like him, and they're going to say he's played there. I'm already behind him. That's an issue. I'm already going to be behind somebody else. That's an issue. So, but if they're healthy and Cooper Mays comes back, I say they're better in 2024 than certainly 2023 and comparable to 2022. Too strong? I'm getting a look there.
2022 had a generational talent at right tackle that I don't think anybody can replace. So that's a little bit different. Now, for PFF grades, for people concerned about the interior, PFF grades for guards should be thrown out the window. Now, tackles, it's more okay because, as you know, Dave, tackles is more just one-on-one blocking on the outside. But guards, there's so many stunts and things that different defensive lines run that I think you and I both know that their interior blocking is not as much a one-on-one matchup in football. So guards and centers don't look at PFF grades. I think it's Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins. I think Javonte Spraggins is a rare talent at run blocker. This is why we love people like Cole Kublik, who covers. You need a guy like that to cover SEC football because he will tell you he doesn't watch anything but the offensive line every play. And the first player he mentioned when I interviewed him was Javonte Spraggins at SEC Media Days. He's like, look at his downfield blocking every time Tennessee runs the ball. And I did this year, and he was right. I mean, he was dead right. And I don't know if you can replace that at guard. But if he comes back, and if Cooper Mays comes back, this offensive line will be elite. It will be very, very, very elite.
And I think they would be good enough to compensate if Keurig falls a little bit short this year. But I believe that he's going to make some sort of improvement. You don't think he's physically prepared to play, so maybe you go pitch that to an offensive lineman in the transfer portal. But here's why offensive linemen in the transfer portal aren't shaking out to be all that I thought they would be. And there's a very specific reason why. Portions of the program brought to you by Harold Group Security Solutions. In private schools now want to be in public schools and keep your kids safe. That's exactly right. Leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. In private schools, want to go to public schools, go to your administrator, also at your workplace, and say, you need to reach out to Harold Group Security Solutions. Let's avoid the tragedies of our past that have marred our country's recent history. Offensive line is not a place where you just step in and are ready to go. There's a reason, other than the physical ability, that Tennessee looked inept without Cooper Mays. It's chemistry. And at that left guard position, if there's an Achilles heel, if it's not Carrick who's able to take a step and they have to go get somebody else, are you going to be as good in September as you'd like to be? Probably not. I think chemistry is a big, big thing on the offensive line. And when I look at positions now that we're learning about the transfer portal, I think offensive line is going to be one of the positions that has the least amount of impact over the years. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, offensive line more than any position is about development and about, you're right, about chemistry, particularly, and I keep stressing this, the interior of the offensive line. You can plug in a tackle. Left tackle is a very simple position to play on the line. Isn't it, Dave? Just beat the person in front of you. And right tackle is pretty much similar too, isn't it? Aren't they both the same? Just beat the guy in front of you?
For the most part, you're playing in space. It's more of a one-on-one game. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The difference is, I mean, nowadays, back when the earth was cooling and dinosaurs roamed the earth, you knew that as an offensive tackle, the guy was going to be lined up on your probably outside shoulder, and he was going to have his hand on the ground. Now, guys like James Pearce may be standing up. They may have their hand on the ground. They may just come beat the bleep out of you. So, I mean, it's a little bit more difficult, but I see what you're saying. If you're physically gifted, you should be able to, and take coaching, you should be able to handle that position.
Right, exactly. And so that's the difference to me so with the interior, chemistry matters. And there's development, and this is why we talk about this all the time. Iowa and Wisconsin, they've been for years churning out NFL offensive linemen and NFL guards. Why? They have a system where they get some corn-fed guys that are maybe 2 or 3 stars, and they just coach them up. And they always lead the NFL in offensive linemen. Always. I think Wisconsin one year led the NFL. I think 3 years in a row, Wisconsin led the NFL in players in the Super Bowl, and they were all offensive linemen in the Super Bowl those 3 years. And so it's not just a transfer portal, Dave. Offensive line is probably where the biggest misses are on the recruiting trail coming out. And
G. Smith says, what about depth, Dave? Where are we in the O-line for 2025? Well, that's where it gets dicey. I'm just going to be honest.
That's why 2024 is so crucial.
Yeah, and I thought 2024 it could get dicey because I was assuming Cooper Mays left. I thought that it could get dicey next year. I think it gets dicey after that. Addison Nichols, from what I was told, lacked some toughness and never really fit into the program. So I don't think that's a loss for Tennessee. It might be a gain for another program, but I don't think it's a loss for Tennessee because I don't think it was ever going to shake out right for him as of all. Depth, though, G. Smith, I mean, buddy, you're exactly right. I mean, I don't know who the depth is next year. I think it's tough to get that in the transfer portal, and those are the guys you should be grooming for 2025. So 2025 is going to be an interesting year on the offensive line. And it at this point, if you made me project, it'd probably be a step back year. And that's not what you want. Obviously, you don't want to have your highs and lows and peaks and valleys. But we'll see if a better passing attack is able to slow down some of those defensive linemen. And I think that's what Josh Heupel is gambling on to some extent. Heisman finalist revealed who should win. Will Nico be a finalist next year? We'll get into that. And you were going to say on Pearce?
Yeah, I wondered about this. I understand where the debate's going on our message board. I love the spirited debate. I'm not going to get into that at this moment. But, Dave, I just thought about this. Does NIL, how much of an impact does this have on how coaches can discipline players now? Because say James Pearce got a bunch of NIL money from advertisers. Josh Heupel is going to have a much harder time dismissing a player if Booster spent a bunch of money on him for advertising, isn't he?
Oh, I don't think they would question if they cut him. Are you talking about an endorser saying, hey, you just cut our guy?
Yeah. Yes. Do you think that's possible now? I mean, we're talking like Nico got $8 million. Now, I don't think Nico Iamaleava was going to do anything to get dismissed. But let's just say hypothetically, he did something really, really bad. You don't think those boosters are going to want that $7 to $8 million back that they spent on him?
I believe that surely to God's creation that these are like annual contracts, and if you get in trouble that you don't have to continue paying. So what you're proposing is that Iamaleava, they would have to continue, like if something happened, they would have to continue to pay him while he's at Texas A&M.
Or maybe they paid him, or maybe they were stupid and paid him all up front.
Oh, Lord. I mean, that would be awful. I love you to death, Caleb, but I don't know.
I mean, that's a year up front. Remember Eric Dickerson in the 80s? Texas A&M bought him a car illegally to go to Texas A&M. He knew they couldn't snitch on him, so he still went to SMU and just kept the car.
I always thought the car was from SMU. All right, well, I learned something there. Okay, coming up, Heisman finalist reveal. Will Nico be a Heisman finalist next year? And that means getting invited. We'll give you reasons why and why not. And I'm not allowed to share my Heisman vote. Should I do it anyway? Maybe I will. In 2 minutes, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Right back. Nico, a Heisman finalist? Maybe.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Back to today's tough question. How do you feel about the James Pearce incident? 19% now say very concerned. 31% say somewhat concerned. 50% say all good, just being a kid. The last one should be as popular.
I'm in the middle. I'm with you. I'm not like a throw the book at somebody for making mistakes, but I'm also not like, let's not pretend that what he did isn't wrong. Now, again, I want to address, because people talked about the going 63 and a 35, which that is significantly over the speed limit. Dave, how many times have you been, and particularly in Knoxville where it's very hilly, you can be driving down a hill, the speed limit goes down, and you don't even realize you're speeding sometimes because it's just like your foot's not even on the pedal. And
oh yeah,
like
I mean, like I
over.
told you, I rented a car, and I still would like to have one as the family truckster. is a Ford Edge, and that's just a random shout out to the Ford Edge. It is so smooth it goes about 10-20% faster than you think it's going. You have to use cruise control or you will get a ticket. I rented one. I got a ticket driving to Gainesville. So yes, it is very easy. And I was doing 60 and a 40.
With the Grand Cherokee, if you're going down a hill, you could easily see some going like 25, 30 miles over the speed limit, right?
Right. I'm not saying it's okay. Rocky Top Tom is, lost someone to a traffic accident. I'm not saying it's okay, nor am I proud of it, but mistakes happen, especially at the wheel. And, sometimes we speed. Not that I speed. I let Caleb drive once at SEC Media Days. He was insane. He was just all over the place.
That's not true. I never drove at SEC Media Days. You're just making stuff up. Caleb Road drove us a couple of times. We let the young guy drive me and Dave.
How did Giroux do? I'm surprised with those big, what are they, Kanye shoes or whatever he was wearing. He was able to fit his feet in between the brake pedal and the gas pedal, or press one and not the other. Have I ever told you my story?
I was making myself be very, very proper, sitting in the back, like, "Oh, Gyro, turn left here, dear driver."
Have I ever told you my story about when I drove a stock car at Bristol Motor Speedway?
You did not.
So I have size 15 feet. So when I would try to press the gas, my feet were so big they pressed the brake too. And
oh my God, really?
Yeah, there were 12 people. There were 14 people that ran the race. I finished 12th. And you always know you didn't do well when you're getting out of there and you're getting out and you're climbing out of the stock car. And I said, how'd I do? And they go, well, did you have fun? Yeah. Well, if they're just asking me that, then I didn't do very well. And for the record, I was beaten by 4 women and the husband of the Black Widow pool shark lady. You know who I'm talking about?
No, I do
Somebody
not.
Google that. Help me with a Black Widow pool shark lady, because she was there, stunning in person. Stunning. Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, the Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. And again, tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsors. It is close to Christmas time, so you need to check out RickTerryJewelry.com. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. The Heisman finalists have been revealed. Who should win? But more importantly, will Nico be a finalist next year or even the year after? So I'll give you 3 choices on the message board, and I'll give Caleb 3 choices. 1, he's a finalist next year. 2, he's a finalist in 2025. 3, he's never a finalist. By the way, a finalist is defined as going to New York City. Now, there's been some confusion on that. Sometimes they can bring 3. Sometimes they can bring 5. It really depends. It's 4 this year. It really depends on the voting and how close it is and how much drama they think there is. In other words, they're not going to take a Brady Quinn like at the NFL draft that has to just sit there like a doofus on camera forever. So it would essentially mean that at the very least, Nico would be a top 5 player. Okay, so before we get to that, who are the finalists? Who would you have voted for? I'm technically not allowed to say, but who would you have voted for? Who would have been your top 3?
Okay, so the finalists are Jaden Daniels at LSU, Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State, Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, and Bo Nix at Oregon.
Okay,
I'd have voted for Jaden.
My 3 are there. They were pretty easy, and I'm not going to give anything away, but they don't play wide receiver. So this is almost a year that I just didn't feel like there was a clear-cut finalist. And this is the kind of season that a guy like Nico could benefit from. So I'll give you the options. He will be in New York.
Well, hold on. Let me give you who my winner was. You never even let me give you.
Okay,
I don't have a vote, so I can give my winner.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I disagree.
Penix by a few inches, Travis says.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. I think it's actually pretty clear cut. It's Jaden Daniels. I don't care that LSU didn't play for the national title and that they had 3 losses. His stats were historically amazing. He wins the Heisman in my book. I mean, I think it's obvious.
Without giving it away, I'm not going to argue with you. How about that? Okay. Nico, 2023, 2024, or nada? Never.
You mean 2024 or 2025?
2024.
Man, if he makes it to New York in 2023,
that'd be amazing. Like, he'd have to buy a ticket. But
I am going to say, if it's not 2024, Josh Heupel will not work out as a coach at Tennessee, unless it's an injury.
Whoa! So you think he has to be in New York City for the Heisman ceremony next year, or there's an issue?
Or there's provided he's healthy, he has to be in New York next year, or else there's a big concern about Josh Heupel's program going forward. Josh Heupel staked everything on Nico. Everything about Josh Heupel's program has been staked on next year with Nico. So he better be in New York next year. And yeah, I think he'll be in New York next year.
Okay, you're going to have, just in the SEC, you're going to have Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck to compete with. And I think Beck's really good, for the record. So you could be the third best quarterback in the SEC, and Tennessee could still win 10-plus games.
Did you watch Mike Bobo's coaching in the SEC championship game? Carson Beck can go to New York.
Are you telling me that
I
under
was
Bobo, no quarterback is going to...
I waited all year to say Mike Bobo would do Georgia in. And Dave, you have to agree with me. Mike Bobo called a horrible game on Saturday, didn't he?
I thought it was horrible. I also thought, though, that he was hamstrung a little bit because Alabama's defensive interior was really good, and he was afraid of it.
He was hurt, too.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he'd have to be better than Beck and Milroe, who, let's face it, the Heisman is a lot about pub, right? So, I mean, the pub is going to be to get an Alabama and Georgia guy there. So he would have to beat both those guys in Heisman voters' eyes to get there. So I say no, he doesn't make it next year. 2025, I think, is a real possibility. But again, we're really projecting ahead, and I'm basing this off too. I know that some people listen, and and there's a lot of talking heads out there nowadays, but I'm telling you what I've heard about Nico in practice. Okay, and sources within the program have told me he's looked darn good, that he is a competitor. Specifically, Joe Milton takes things a little lightly. I think that Nico is more along the lines of, let's get this bleeping thing done right now. It's not okay to be okay at a Wednesday practice. So I think you're going to get a great leader next year as still an underclassman. I think you're going to get at least a very good quarterback and an upgrade. I don't know that you're going to get a Heisman finalist, though, Caleb. I can't go that far.
If you don't get a Heisman finalist, look, Hendon Hooker would have been a Heisman finalist if he didn't get hurt. If you don't get that, then you failed as Josh Heupel as a head coach, and you will not win a championship at Tennessee. I would go ahead and move on from Josh Heupel next year if Nico's not a finalist. Josh Heupel. I would. Josh Heupel's entire calling card is his ability to make quarterbacks look like God on the field because of how good he is. Joe Milton, I understand, it was limited. Nico Iamaleava is the best quarterback possible for Josh Heupel's system. If Nico's not in New York next year, Dave, that means people have figured out Josh Heupel's offense. That's what that means. And I am.
Well, I don't think there's any figuring out Josh Heupel's offense. I think, I don't think
in New York.
By you saying figure out, I want to stop on that for a second. By you saying figure out Josh Heupel's offense, Caleb, that makes me think gimmick offense. I don't think it is.
It is a little gimmicky, but it works. And he runs the ball a lot, but let's not forget the wide splits is a little gimmicky. He's taking advantage of the wide hash marks in college football and the downfield blocking. That's undeniable. So you can't disguise coverage on defense. What happened this year? Now, again, I think and you think we both agree that the disproportionate amount. Thank you, Rocky Top Tom. Totally agree. The drop off to 2025 is a concern.
Yeah, read what he said for those on the audio platform.
Rocky Top Tom says we could have our entire OL and DL return in 24. We have Squirrel, Mike Matthews, and great tailbacks. It's looking groovy next season. The drop off of 25 worries me. Rocky Top Tom, you said the word groovy. You didn't strike me as a hippie, Rocky Top Tom.
No, groovy makes me think of the Batman dance. You remember that? Okay, now the next person, you have to read this one too if you're going to read other posts on our message board, and we encourage you to post early and often. Read this one.
Caleb, you're crazy. Hey, you know what? Sometimes crazy people are proven right. I'm just saying. If you believe the biblical text, literally, everybody said Noah was crazy when he built the ark.
They did. And then, that was even portrayed in Evan Almighty. He says, run the ball.
Such a stupid movie.
I love that movie. I
movie
can't help but
time.
love that. I don't know why. It's a guilty pleasure. Travis says, figured it out. Run the ball, screenplays times 10, deep ball, get it figured out.
So this is what I was getting at.
Yeah, they're not going to run those screenplays times 10 that you saw last year.
That's what the question is: have they figured it out, or was Milton just that limited?
I mean, you know how I feel. I've been saying
yes, you feel Milton was that limited.
I told you that when we started doing this on a regular basis in February.
I agree. Meaning next year, Nico better not be limited. I expect more deep balls. And yes, Travis, I did just compare myself to Noah.
You just talking about that beard.
Okay, so all I'm saying.
I feel like I should introduce your beard. I feel like it's Dave, Caleb, and Caleb's beard are the co-host of the show.
I'm just a regulation hottie, guys.
Things getting out of control.
All I'm saying is Nico had better be in New York next year. He'd better be in New York. For Josh Heupel's sake, he'd better be in New York. And guys, stop. I'm going to address this. Do I think there might have been an ESPN bias against Tennessee? And it does certainly show, because Tennessee's just had the bad luck of media voters deciding the year they break all the rules and their standards, just happening to be the year Tennessee has a Heisman finalist. I think it's just been bad luck. The Peyton Manning year, they changed all their standards one year because they were tired of giving it to quarterbacks, honestly, and offensive players.
Hey, this is why I love our message board and the ability to interact. This is a really great point. Those screen passes, how many of them break if Brew McCoy's not hurt? Because Brew McCoy is a great blocker and Brew McCoy is athletic. So some of those passes are going to go to him, and some of those are going to go to the receivers that he's blocking for. I think the screen game, which Tennessee had to rely on because of Joe Milton's deficiencies, could have been considerably better with Brew McCoy in the lineup. I love our message board. Great point, guys.
Absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, you only had one game this year with Cooper Mace and Brew McCoy both healthy. And if you think about it, Dave, if we did a list of like the 4 players Tennessee couldn't afford to lose, Brew McCoy and Cooper Mays would both have been on that list, right?
Yeah, Brew would have.
Yeah,
definitely.
And both got hurt. They only played one game together this year. The other one who would have made the list is Keenan Peely, and he missed the whole year. So we're talking like, just on a tangent for a minute, Tennessee had the most key injuries possible that they could not afford this year, given the lack of depth. And so, yeah, I think Brew blocking with the screens, it would have been a huge deal. Squirrel Thornton in the screen game with Brew blocking. You're right. Could have been a sight. That is true. I think, and by the way, with like Rocky Tom pointed out, Mike Matthews is a 5-star. He better work out. Nico to Mike Matthews, man. I'm telling you, Nico better be in New York next year. I'm not even saying Tennessee has to compete for the national title. Nico just has to be in New York.
There we go. Portions of the program brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Go to facebook.com and follow them at Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. So right now, we know that Nico's going to need some help at wide receiver, just like every other quarterback. So my question for you is, with who will be Tennessee's starting 3 wide receivers, including the slot? We know that they like to go with 3 and stick with 3. We saw that in 2022. You and I both adhere to that coaching principle. So who are the 3 starting receivers next year? Because if you throw out there Nimrod or Webb, I'm just going to tell you that Nico's not going to have a Heisman finalist type of campaign. No offense to those guys.
No, that's fine. It's either going to be Brew McCoy or Mike Matthews on one side. And it depends on if Brew McCoy comes back. But I believe Mike Matthews is a dictated coverage type of receiver. Don't you, Dave?
Yes. No, I do. And I'm fine with him. I think that just somebody has to open up the middle for Squirrel. I'm not exactly sure that Thornton won't slide outside. So what if it's Thornton, McCoy, and Squirrel? I think they were toying with that.
Coming on late, but I still don't see Thornton being better than a healthy Brew McCoy, and I still don't see him. I don't see a Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy, or even potential of Mike Matthews with Dante Thornton. even though I retracted what I said about him during the middle of the season. I've been hot and cold on Thornton. I said him coming to Tennessee was Kevin Durant to Golden State's offense. Then I said I'm done with him. He's terrible. Now I'm like, okay, he's good, but I don't see him being a Brew McCoy dictate coverage type receiver. So
but when I look at the trio of potentially Thornton on the outside, here's what I'm thinking. Okay, and I'm going to make a Dallas Cowboys reference in the early 90s. So for some of you, I will sound very old. For Caleb, I will sound very weak of just going back to my old go-to. They had a guy named Kelvin Martin, who was a slot receiver who played at Miami. And then they had a guy named Michael Irvin who played on the outside. And they had a guy named Alvin Harper, who you probably know, who played on the outside as well. And that's when they were at their best. So what if Dante Thornton is your Alvin Harper? He's running go route after go route. He's stretching the field on the outside. Squirrel's your slot. And then your possession receiver is Brew McCoy with similar to Michael Irvin in that he could break the big one every now and again. Because I think that Michael Irvin was kind of like the best possession receiver ever because he could turn in a big play now and again, but I don't think he's anywhere close to the best receiver ever, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
The last couple of years, Tennessee's had a wideout who they had a possession receiver on one side, which was typically Ravel Keaton, and then a dictate coverage receiver like Brew McCoy or Cedric Tillman. You're seeing you could have both of those in one, a dictate coverage and possession receiver be the same guy, and then have a guy run a go route at the other wideout spot.
Yeah. I think based off what I've seen, I think that only guy that could really dictate coverage is Brew. I mean, I don't see Dante Thornton jumping into that.
Yeah,
role.
and that's the thing. So it'll either be Brew or Mike Matthews if Mike Matthews can do it. And if that's depending on if Brew comes back. And by the way, even if Brew comes back, it's a broken leg. Are we sure he's going to be able to dictate coverage like he was able to before?
Boy, they just fix people so good now. Don't they?
That's a tough one, though. That was an ugly injury. Now, Willis McGahee made it in the NFL with I think, the freakiest injury I ever saw in real time, the Willis McGahee hit against Ohio State in the national title game. But, man, that Brew McCoy injury was gruesome. That was up there with, remember the David Holbert injury in practice, Dave? I bet you were covering that.
I didn't see it. I remember it. I didn't see it.
It was snapshotted in real time. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen.
I'm kind of a point where I'm old and I avoid seeing those. I just I depend on Caleb to tell me how bad things might be. Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains, use the promo code HAT to receive some free swag on your cider order. Available most anywhere in the United States of America. tncidercompany.com. tncidercompany.com. That's Tennessee Cider Company. Use the promo code HAT. And I want to talk a little bit of Lady Vols if we can for a second. And it is time for 4 Downs, brought to you by our good friend Don Self at State Farm.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Lady Vols are 1-3 in their last 4 games. 1-3 versus top 25 teams, I should say. Is Kelly Harper on the hot seat? That's what we want to dive into for a moment and get your thoughts as well. What do you expect out of this Lady Vols program? And it's brought to you by Don Self. First, if I can, I'll tell you what, I would really like for Cooper to tell everybody what to do.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Good call, Coop. All right, here we go. First down.
Coop here. First down.
Is Kelly Harper on the hot seat right now as of early December?
Yes, and she should be.
Okay.
I think the biggest reason is that a lot of people are going to make she's 1-4 against top 25 teams. They needed overtime to beat Memphis, and a lot of people are going to make the excuse, Kelly Harper doesn't have her best player, Rickea Jackson. Guys, the gap in women's basketball talent, while a lot closer than it was 20 years ago, is still not to the degree that if Tennessee's where you expect it to be, their one injury should cause them to lose 4 or 5 top 25 games. You agree with me on that, right, Dave? The gap's not that significant.
Yes.
And
nobody is asking her, by the way, to win 7 national championships.
Nobody. But, and by the way, they lost by 20 to Ohio State the other night. You really think they're beating Ohio State at home, even with Rickea Jackson in that game? No, I don't. So, yeah, no, she's on the hot seat.
All right. Second down brought to you by Don Self of State Farm.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Thanks, Coop. I'd like to see Coop out there. He could ball back in the day. Actually, he said baseball was his second sport. What are the expectations this season? Brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. For over 40 years in Collegedale, Ottawa, as well as the greater Chattanooga area, customer service still matters. Don Self, your friendly neighborhood State Farm agent for the greater Chattanooga area. Customer service. I know everybody's looking for great prices, but nowadays it's nice to have great customer service. So what are the expectations this season? Let me start, if you don't care. Fair expectations are Sweet 16 each and every year for this Tennessee program. There are more women's basketball programs that are pouring money into the sport than before. That is true. It is not like it was when Pat Summitt was at the helm. That's a fact. But Sweet 16 for a program that does spend money like UConn, South Carolina, I could go on and on. That's reasonable expectations every year. However, expectations, given what Tennessee had coming back and the fact that Kelly Harper has had time. How many years is this for her? Is this her fourth year?
This is her fifth year.
Fifth year. Okay. Final four. If you go to one of those programs, UConn, South Carolina, Tennessee, within 5 years, you should be in the Final Four. Am I wrong?
Easily within 5 years. And if not, you should have a Final Four type of team. Like it's college basketball, even women's basketball. You can live with an upset every now and then in the NCAA tournament where you may have had a number 1 seed and slipped up in the Elite Eight. That happens all the time in college basketball. But this Tennessee team isn't even on track for a Final Four. Like no one would have them as a number 1 seed or even a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament right now. So that's either a Final Four, either make the Final Four or be on track for the Final Four as a 1 or 2 seed.
Coop, what down is it?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right. What are fair expectations for 5 years? The next 5 years. I say 2 Final Fours, and you're in 2 Final Fours, Elite Eight, 2 Sweet 16s. I think that's fair. Is that too harsh? Is that too high?
I think you're allowed one first round exit every 5 years. This day and age of women's basketball, first weekend exit in the NCAA tournament. I think you're allowed one every 5 years.
So one first weekend, two Final
Fours. One first weekend, 2 Sweet 16s, 2 Sweet 6. One first weekend, 2 second weekends, 2 third weekends, which third weekend is Final Four.
Yep, absolutely. And then fourth down.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right, fourth down is, how does this end?
I think Danny White's going to fire her. Danny White, largely because Danny White is confident in his own ability to hire. Danny White is the best hirer in all of college athletics as an athletic director. Look at his track record. Look at guys he's found dating back to when he was at Buffalo. I mean, the dude's amazing, Dave. And I think there are a lot of names out there that you can go get. And so I think he fires her. And here's the real sticking point, Dave. The football thing already wrecked Fulmer's legacy as athletic director at Tennessee. If Danny White fires Kelly Harper, that's just another nail, and that's just like adding insult to injury, because that was a Fulmer hire as athletic director at Tennessee. And that even makes his legacy even more irrelevant.
Did you think it was a bad hire at the time?
Yes, I did, because she had gotten fired from another job in the past. And Fulmer made the hire because, and I never believe in doing this, Missouri State in 2019, where she was, made a Cinderella run to the Sweet 16. Here's a lesson in college sports, particularly college basketball. Never hire a coach because they had a Cinderella tournament run. Do you know how easy it is to get hot in the tournament, guys? That is not indicative of the job you do at that place.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. I mean, you could have one hot shooting team. I mean, Southwest Missouri State beat Tennessee in Charlotte one year with Jerry Green, and they were far more Tennessee was far more talented, and Southwest Missouri State beat Tennessee. If you play that game 10 times, Tennessee wins 9.5. So no, you're right. Don't pick somebody off a tournament run. But let me ask you this. is Tennessee perceived as a good job to have because of the support, or is it perceived as an okay job to have because of expectations? Can you call Kara Lawson, a Don Staley, an A-list coach and get them to come? Or has Tennessee changed so dramatically from the Pat Summit days that those ladies are going to be like, I'm going to go hard pass on that?
I think Tennessee is a terrible job to have. And I'm going to tell you why. It's not just the expectations. No one's expecting 8 national titles. No one's expecting that. So I'm not saying it's because of the expectations. Tennessee's a terrible job to have because of the culture of the program that is very similar, Dave. And my best example is Tennessee's a terrible job to have the way Notre Dame is a terrible job to have in football. In the sense, it's not the expectations. It's that there's a culture that you're expected not just to win, but to win a certain way. And the winning a certain way is not possible to win that way anymore in women's basketball. And there are things like Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is in Knoxville. Coaches don't believe in giving their players a tour of the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. The culture is you don't give your player a tour of the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame because that's an unfair recruiting advantage. So what if it's an unfair recruiting advantage? This was the whole Pat Summit, Maya Moore thing. Remember with Gina Auriemma? She was mad that Gina Auriemma was giving his players a tour of the ESPN facility.
Well, are they not doing that anymore?
No, Pat,
are they not
they
doing a tour of the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame? If not, that would be insano.
They didn't believe. I know this. When I was there, they didn't believe in it. They thought that was an unfair recruiting. They are very by the book. Here's why Tennessee got great guys. Tennessee has a unique women's basketball.
Say this. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame because the times I've been there, it's basically been talk to the janitor.
The what?
The janitor. I'm not being mean. I mean, you would have plenty of room if you took some visitors there.
Yeah. And so here's the women's basketball culture at Tennessee is not, here's what a lot of students don't get. It's not the same fan base that is the Tennessee football fan base and the Tennessee basketball fan base. Okay. It's not like other leagues where like UConn, the women's basketball and the men's basketball fans, there's a crossover there. Okay. Not the way with Tennessee women's basketball. Tennessee women's basketball, and here's what people need to understand. Pat Summitt was a great coach, but Dave, you want to know why Tennessee became such a legendary program more than anything else? Because Tennessee was the only state in the South and the only college really to fully embrace Title IX when it happened in the early 1970s. They got fully on board with women's sports when, because of old school thinking in a lot of Southern schools, there was a lot of anti-belief in women's sports at that time. Put it that way. And Tennessee was, Tennessee was ahead of the curve in high school basketball. They changed the high school basketball rules before anybody else. Tennessee has high school basketball, women's basketball embedded from the 1930s. No other state has that. And it was just a culture that was developed because Tennessee was ahead of the curve with women's sports. That's why they got so good. That advantage is gone. Every state has embraced women's sports at this point. But the people that became Tennessee fans are those women from the 1970s that fought so hard for these rights that they earned and they deserved. But they believe, many of them believe you do things a certain way that you just can't do it this day and age. And until they accept that they can't do it that day and age. I mean, Fulmer caved to pressure. I'll tell you this. Fulmer did not want to hire Kelly Harper, Dave. The reason he hired Kelly Harper is because the alumni came to him and basically was like, you have to hire a former Lady Vol. You can't hire outside the Lady Vol culture to coach the Lady Vols.
Would certainly be ridiculous. That's 4 Downs, again, brought to you by Don Self. You can easily go to donself.net. He is your greater Chattanooga friendly neighborhood State Farm agent, and he will take care of you. Customer service still matters. I want to get to this college football playoff and our 5 favorite minutes where you drive the show. You tell us what you want to talk about. We'll answer your questions and probably get off on a tangent. Brought to you in part by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier with Chattanooga Mortgage. That's chat with 2 T's mortgage.com. If you're in the Chattanooga area, chat with 2 T's mortgage.com. Our 5 favorite minutes, that means you coming up. And also, we will get to this college football playoff. Should we go ahead and just chuck it and go 12 this year? I say, heck yeah. Caleb's probably going to rain on my parade. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place, with a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
You guys are getting rowdy on the message board. So be sure and stay tuned for our 5 favorite minutes, which is all about you because we appreciate you. What you want to talk about ends the program each and every day as we broadcast live on YouTube. Also available wherever you would like to pull us down, be it Spotify, be it the Apple Podcast, all that good stuff. But we're live each and every weekday at 10 a.m. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Also, I want to remind you that you can relive the greatest season in Tennessee football history with behind-the-scenes stories about the 1998 National Championship team. Click below for Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship. Available in soft and hard copy and available in packages. If you want to give away some for Christmas, we can definitely take care of you there. We greatly appreciate it. It was definitely a passion project, and I just want as many people to be able to read the book as possible. So you can click right down there. Please order, and I think you'll be surprised some of our Black Friday discounting that we went ahead and continued on. And I think it'll be something neat that you'll be able to give your family and friends that are Tennessee fans. And I'll tell you this, it's not a rehashing of this season. It's more stories since and stories during that you haven't heard before. All right, so we've got coming up our 5 favorite minutes. But first, what a 12-team playoff would look like this year. Is it better or stupid? That's what Caleb Calhoun asked. So basically, you would have the top 4 teams getting a bye. And lay this out for me because we were at our 3:45 a.m. Production meeting, and we went through this, and Caleb may be smarter than me because I got a little bit lost. So let me ask you, would you like to see a 12-team playoff right now? Let me hear from you on the message board. And then Caleb's going to run through this because if you don't follow him on Twitter, it's at Caleb Calhoun. You probably don't know that he hates the idea of a 12-team playoff. He was crying alone on Saturday during the SEC championship game, and he kept saying, no more Vern, no more Vern, because he loves Vern Lundquist, CBS, and the SEC championship game, which I hate to tell you, Caleb, is still going to be relevant, even though you don't think it is. But before we get to your breakdown of a potential 12, potential 12-team playoff, I'll remind you that Hemp House is the premier hemp dispensary online and with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. Hooked, get 10% off. And they also have the Big Orange Crunch, which is pretty darn awesome. All right, so the college football playoff, if it started a week from Saturday, I would be so excited. It would be so phenomenal. But Caleb's going to rain on my parade. Let's get your thoughts on the college football playoff, the 12-team. Are you for it? Are you against it? Caleb, let's hear where you stand. I have a feeling.
Here's my thoughts on what the 12-team playoff would look like if it went into effect this year. Yes, that's right. I did that. Okay, this is absolutely stupid. Let me break down for you guys. It's the top 6 conference champions and then the top 6 at large. They favor, when they're seeding, they weight conference championships. So let's just break down this utter stupidity. And by the way, I'm doing it what the alignment of the conferences will be next year, okay? So
I wouldn't. People back me on the message board and talk about how awesome this 12-team playoff is going to be.
Okay, here's
I'm
what
just
it would
asking.
be. No, this
I'm
is
openly.
This is so stupid.
I'm openly asking people to support me, which I usually don't do because I'm always right.
Okay, but if we're going to have the argument, you got to let me lay out what it would look like real quick, and why it would look so stupid. So, auto bids. Michigan or Washington would receive an auto bid, because only one of them is going to win the Big Ten next year, because they're both going to be in the Big Ten, which is stupid on its own. Okay. The other auto bid, Alabama or Texas, because those two teams will be in the SEC. I guess you would theoretically say Texas since they beat Alabama this year. So let's just go with Texas gets the auto bid from the SEC. Okay. Is that fair, Dave?
Okay. I'll roll with that.
So so Michigan or Washington, Texas, Florida State, and Arizona, because they'll be in the Big 12. They would be Big 12 champs this year. Those would be the 4 teams to get the first round bye in the college football playoff. Arizona getting a first round bye is stupid. They're not better than Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Washington, whatever. Okay, so now let's go to the other 2 auto bids. You ready for these auto bids, Dave? Oh my God, I'm so excited to see these teams. Liberty University. I think I'd rather watch what Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife were doing in the bedroom for fun back in the day with the pool boy than I would rather watch Liberty in the playoff. Okay, I think Jerry Falwell Jr. puts on a better spectacle with all those shenanigans. And then SMU. Liberty and SMU are going to get so blown out by whoever they play, because those teams will play in the first round. Let me give you the other first round teams. It would be Michigan or Washington. Let's just say Michigan, because Michigan would be the Big Ten champion for Washington, right? They'd beat Washington, wouldn't they?
I would think.
Okay, so let's just say Washington is an at-large. Washington's an at-large, Alabama's an at-large, Georgia's an at-large, Ohio State's an at-large, Oregon's an at-large, and Missouri's an at-large. You're going to get to watch Liberty play Georgia in the first round of the tournament. Wow! I can't wait to see that game. I can't wait to see what Liberty's going to do to Georgia. They might come within 75 points of Georgia. What do you think, Dave?
I think I want to have this discussion on January the 2nd if Liberty hangs with the Ducks.
That doesn't count. It's not a playoff game. Oregon doesn't care to be there.
No, I understand. But talent-wise, you'll be able to look on the field and see if it's close or it's way, way separated. I don't have a problem with Liberty getting a chance in a 12-team playoff. I had a problem with Cincinnati getting a shot in a 4-team playoff because I thought there were 4 teams significantly better than them. A 12-team playoff
and what happened to them?
Well, I mean, they got blown out, but a 12-team playoff gives you a little bit more wiggle room. And, TCU, I thought, did enough last year where you think there could be an upset or two along the way. Would Liberty beat the number 5 seed? Probably not, but let's see how close it is. Let's see how close it is. I would be excited to see that.
No, this is so ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. And by the way, you guys like this. Dave, you're the one who said it yesterday. This is a television show. Okay? I'm sorry. The bowl games the college football playoff, by the way, has been a failure. the last 10 years. The BCS was better than the college football playoff. There's not even a question about that, because when you had 4 teams in the college football playoff, you know how bad the games have been for the most part the last 10 years. They were mostly more like TCU Georgia than they were like Georgia Ohio State.
Right, but you're not seeing the big picture of this. The big picture is everything is trending towards more parity. It is.
It's not going to be that significant.
You're adding NIL and you're adding transfer portal, and you're not saying that parity is not going to be significant. I think it's going to be pretty darn significant.
I think there's more parity coming. I don't think there's enough parity coming to the level where Liberty can ever come within 50 points of Georgia.
Well, I mean, probably not, but that's why the first 4 teams get a bye.
Yeah, but Georgia wouldn't get a bye this year. That's the thing.
Here's what you don't remember, Caleb, because I'm older than you. I remember split national champions.
Those were fun.
Those aren't fun at all. Those are stupid.
Those were fun. Mythical national champions was what they called them.
What? No, I'm talking to AP coaches poll.
I know that was before 1998. It was called the era of mythical national champions for college football.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that term, but that was awful. This is way better.
There was a simple fix. You know what the fix was, Dave? You didn't need the BCS. You didn't need the playoff. You know what the fix was? And by the way, it'd be epic if they had this year. Here was my fix. Play all the bowl games, all the bowl tie-ins. By the way, old school bowl tie-ins. SEC goes to the Sugar Bowl. I guess now just Big Ten goes to the Rose Bowl. You don't need the Pac-2 gets an automatic Rose Bowl invite. But okay, go back to the old tie-ins of SEC Sugar Bowl, Big Ten Rose Bowl. You know what I'm talking about. ACC Orange Bowl, all those. Play the bowl games. Then just do a +1. Rank the top 2 teams after the bowl games and have them play for the national title. You never would have had a split national champion then. You would have had that would be epic this year, because you'd have Michigan and Washington playing in the Rose Bowl. You'd have Florida State playing Georgia in the Orange Bowl. You'd have Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and you'd have Texas in the Fiesta Bowl. And we'd be watching all of those games because they would all have playoff top 2 for national title implications. You know how epic that would be? You would make more games relevant.
Yeah, I think what they should do in the NFL too, by the way, is they should just start a coaches poll and a Football Writers Association of America poll, and not even have the playoffs. I think that would be a great idea.
I don't think they should have a playoff in the NFL. You know
oh my gosh!
No,
you've gotten soccer on the brain, haven't you?
Premier League soccer does well because they do this. Okay, here's what by the way, the playoff ruined baseball. Baseball has died in ratings ever since they added the wild card in 1994. It's the stupidest decision they ever made. Okay?
Baseball's on the way back. They let their game get slow, and they let managers take advantage with the shifts and the other things, and not to mention that everybody tries to hit home runs. Baseball has problems, but it ain't the playoffs.
First of all, baseball first-round buys are stupid. The team with the best record now gets a first-round buy in the playoffs in baseball. That's so dumb, because you don't want to buy when you're in rhythm. It hurts you to have a first-round bye. It's the dumbest thing ever. NFL, here's what I do, and I'm dead serious about this, Dave. I would do this in a heartbeat. There's 32 teams. You know what I do? I would expand it to 40 teams. Okay, I'd expand the NFL to 40 teams.
They're like, that is
you play in the AFC and the NFC. You just play all 19 teams in your conference. Round robin. The team with the best record goes to the Super Bowl in each conference. Boom. Period. End of story. Team with the best record goes to the Super Bowl in each conference, and they play in the Super Bowl. I don't like expanded playoffs. Make the regular season more fun. Make the regular season great again. I want a hat. Make the regular season great again.
That's what we need. That's what we need. Take a strong political stand on that. That's exactly what we need.
Our theme is make the regular season great again. If you guys want to know why America's going downhill, it's because we're devaluing regular seasons in sports, guys. Okay, that is the worst thing happening to America right now, is that we've devalued the regular season in every sport. First of all, Dave, we're going to be analyzing Tennessee basketball throughout the regular season this year, and we're going to be like, oh, okay, they won a game. What are they going to do in March? Oh, okay, well, they won a game. What are they going to do in March? We sacrificed all of that for 3 weeks of fun in March.
Listen, I'm anti-authority for the most part. I tend to buck what the consensus says, but I love the 12-team playoff and how they put together the buys and the home games. I just love it. Jeff says I agree with a lot of what Caleb says, but he is wrong about this.
Home games. Oh my gosh, I forgot it's home games. So Liberty is going to travel to Georgia. They're going to play in Athens, and you're telling me that's going to be entertaining?
Well, no, Liberty would have to. Oh yeah, Georgia. Yeah, they would play at Georgia. Okay. I'm excited.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Liberty playing at Georgia again. I want the video of what Liberty's former president Jerry Falwell Jr. was doing in the bedroom. Send me that video. I'll just watch that, and that'll be more entertaining than this.
Thank you, Dylan. Dylan says I'm all in with Dave. I think the consensus is that Caleb's
I'm
crazy.
not saying I watch porn, but
Good. It's important to get that out of the way. All right. It is time for our 5 favorite minutes. We go your direction. What do you want to talk about? And there you go. Throw it out there. We can continue with the college football playoff talk, but we can go in a different direction if you would like. So our 5 favorite minutes is brought to you by our good friend T. Scott Jones. And I'll tell you what, we are represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones is ready to go to trial for you. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Criminal defense, liability, and more. All right. So let me ask you this. What do you want to talk about in our 5 favorite minutes? I'm going to kind of start this off, but we can go with the direction that you want to go. Is Tennessee's basketball team. We haven't got into Tennessee's basketball team very much lately because they've had a bit of a lull in their schedule. But your thoughts on Tennessee basketball and this upcoming season? To me, Dalton connects
tonight, by the way.
Yeah, George Mason tonight. To me, connects the key, right? I mean, if there's a guy who can manufacture points, not tonight, but can manufacture points, and sometimes Rick Barnes needs his team to manufacture points. I'm talking about in February or March. I'm not talking about
I think
now.
they could in February or March when Zakai Ziegler and Santi Vescovi get fully healthy. I don't know if they'll be able to right now. And so I think that's going to be the problem. I'm still not sold on Jonas Adu as the long-term answer underneath the basket. And
They seem to be, though. They do seem. Well, I don't know if they have any options.
Well, I think
it's kind of like a Joe Milton scenario.
It is a Joe Milton situation because Kate Phillips and JP Estrella aren't ready, and Toby Awaka's banged up. I think Jonas Adu. By the way, Joe Milton would probably be good under the basket. He's only 6'3", but he probably can jump out of the gym. I bet he's really athletic.
Lord, yeah.
But yeah, I think that Jonas Adu, they're trying to go in on him. I just don't know if he's tough enough. And there's kind of that issue of, we talk about toughness in football, playing under the basket, you got to be tough, right, Dave? That's the one position, playing a big down low, you got to be able to handle some bodies. Even in this day and age where basketball is a little more fluid, they still bang you under the basket.
So this is our 5 favorite minutes. We want to go with your topics. Should FSU boycott the bowl game? I don't hate that idea.
I mean, again, this is why I wish the +1 were in place, not the 12-team playoff, because then FSU would have something to play for in the bowl game.
Let me take 1 second to explain really quick the financials of it. Okay. Tennessee, when they played for a national championship, made roughly $50,000. Why? Because they paid for everybody and their brother to go to the national championship game in Tempe, Arizona. I think they literally took 4 planes. And
well, that was a home game for them. That game, you were there, right, Dave? That was a home game for Tennessee against Florida State.
I was not at that game, but
I could see on TV. That was a home game.
Right. Yeah. The point being is you don't make any money on bowl games. Is the point I'm making? It basically is a reward. The idea is to break even. So you might make a couple of $100,000, but you're not making a lot. So financially, there's no reason FSU shouldn't boycott the bowl game. You do have the opportunity to get injured. Somebody next year could get injured and have a slow start to next season. And they got slapped in the face by college football. So if they want to slap college football back in the face, then go for it. I got no problem with that. And I love the idea of the topic, Travis. Good job.
Here's the biggest reason they should boycott the bowl game, for their own sake. Because when they go to the bowl game and they lose by 75 points to Georgia, nobody's going to sit there and say FSU should have gone to the playoff. FSU they were in a lucky scenario where they didn't have to go get Draxed in the college football playoff. But now they're in an unlucky scenario because they drew Georgia in their bowl game. Now, Dave, tell me. I think Kirby Smart's actually going to have his team excited to play this bowl game. Kirby Smart doesn't seem like the type that takes bowl games off. Do you think? I think he's going to take it seriously.
I will tell you, I have absolutely no idea. I think he's more likely than a lot of other coaches. Like, let's take Philip Fulmer, for instance. He would be in a situation where he would be recruiting like heck, which he used to always like to say, recruiting like heck.
Like heck.
Yeah, and he would be if it were the old-fashioned signing day that was the first week in February. But I don't know what Kirby Smart's going to do. But if he decides to go out and be heavy on recruiting, then that's going to filter down to his players. But I will give you this.
Nick Saban takes meaningless bowls seriously. Nick Saban plays them hard.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely give you this. I think Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are two of the coaches more likely than others to take a bowl game very seriously that is otherwise meaningless. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. But getting back to FSU, Rocky Top Tom says, I'd refuse to appear. What if they did that? What would they gain? Because you've got a 12-team playoff coming in next year.
They would gain the facade that they still belong in the playoff because nobody would be able to see them get draxed by Georgia. That's what they would gain. Okay? This is like with 2011. Remember when Alabama got the rematch to play LSU and everybody thought Oklahoma State should have gotten in? That's the thing that sparked the college football playoff.
I do.
How happy do you think Oklahoma State secretly was? They get to avoid getting blown out by LSU, and then they get to celebrate their fun little bowl game win and pretend that they were robbed the whole time, knowing that if they had actually gone to the national championship game, they would have lost by 30 to LSU. So
that's pretty good stuff. Our 5 favorite minutes brought to you by Banks & Jones. We're represented by Banks & Jones. We love that. You give us some direction on what you want to hear about. That will end every show. We're live at 10 a.m. All of our sponsors are below. Please support them. That's why we're here. Check out the book. The prices are special, and they're not forever on Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship. I would certainly appreciate you picking up a copy. So far, the reviews have been good, although I don't know that anybody would come up to me and say, I did buy and read your book, and it is absolutely horrible. So who knows? I mean, man, nobody's going to say that was just god awful. That was
no, but
terrible.
People are reaching out. They would just say nothing. So if they're reaching out to you, that's good.
Well, I ask. Jeff says, what if Nico gets hurt and misses 2 games early with Tennessee losing 1? Are you saying they don't deserve a chance in the playoffs?
That's not what happened with Florida. That's not what happened with Florida State. It's not that Jordan Travis got hurt early. Jordan Travis got hurt late, and it's not. And so that doesn't even apply because we're talking whether or not they're picking the best teams at the moment. Now, I will say this. Here's where the CFP stepped in it, Dave, or the people defending it. Using the Jordan Travis injury as the reason to not put Florida State in is a bad reason, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I wouldn't have put him in even with Jordan Travis. I don't care if they beat Louisville by 50. They're not a top 4 team to me, even with the undefeated record. The problem is that if you're saying it's about the 4 best teams right now, then you shouldn't have Washington or Texas in there either. You should have Georgia and Ohio State in there.
Well, that's definitely a debate for another day. Derek ends the conversation with saying boycotting is weak. Yeah, it would be weak not to show up, but as a guy that enjoys chaos, I wouldn't mind seeing it. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, weekdays at 10 a.m. We'll visit with you right here. Hit that like and subscribe button. We continue to grow and hit a couple of milestones recently that we're very happy with, over 3,500 subscribers. Can we get to 4,000 by the end of the year? I think we can with your help. Tell somebody about the program today. We'd greatly appreciate it. He is Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker, a presentation